Welcome to The Thriving Marriage, the podcast for those who want to get their spouse back in love with them and truly thrive.
You'll learn why 95% of people don't save their marriage and the secret method no one else is talking about that will change everything for you. Are you ready? Let's turn tragedy to triumph.
Here are your hosts, international marriage experts, Mark Johnston and Heather Choate.
All right, so welcome everyone to the Thriving Marriage High Thrive Coaching podcast. My name is Mark Johnston. I'm the head coach here with High Thrive Coaching. With me is Miriam. Miriam, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
So occasionally here on the podcast, we like to dive in a little bit to get to know just some stories from some of our own clients. I know a lot of you out there have questions like, does this work for me? What about my situation here? And so we like to give some real examples on, what does or does not work, and some, just help share with all of you some of the stories that we've encountered in our work. So like I said, Miriam, I mean, you worked with us, just even recently, but I appreciate having you on here. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for asking me. That's all right.
Yeah. So Miriam, do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? Where are you from?
So I'm from the UK in the south of England. I have, been married, I'm not, I suppose, very long. It'll be our 2-year anniversary coming up. And we work together. We did work together. We don't anymore. I do own a diving and water sports company. The main side that I deal with is the website. I did web design sort of at university, and then kind of went into the family business, and then sort of slowly started taking over it. I also have a passion for horse riding. I show jump and produce sort of young horses I've bred a few, so from being born all the way up to international level. So I have a fairly busy but mixed lifestyle.
So it sounds like entrepreneur, and then you have some really fascinating hobbies here. Have you always worked for yourself, or have you always had a business like running in the background there?
I suppose from quite an early age, in terms of when I finished uni. I started off doing just freelancing with web design, and then so I had a small business doing that. And then when I was kind of then taking over like the family business, I decided to go into that because I had a passion for it. I could also see where I could take it more into the 21st century in terms of being more online based and how we could grow the business. So I sort of stepped away and doing so much of the web design, and kind of then put those skills into the company. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
All right. Well, I mean, it's really good to hear that, the background. I mean, just to get to know you a little bit better. But, I know a lot of people that are listening specifically for relationship issues. Can you tell me a little bit about your marriage with Alex, right?
Yeah. So I guess we met, say, 5 years ago, and I suppose everything kind of happened quite quickly, and I suppose where from kind of day one we got on very well. He sort of brought the ring sort of, I suppose, 7 months into us being together, and then proposed after a year. So it was all quite quick in that way. And then we didn't get married until I suppose about 18 months later. He then came in to work in the family business. He was kind of how we met. He used to teach scuba diving just as a sort of a hobby. And I knew his uncle really well, so we kind of got introduced through that way. And then when I was kind of taking over the business a bit more, it was something that we talked about to do together. So then he was a marine engineer, and in sort of then dealing in the management side of it. But then we thought, well, it was something that we do work well together. We would then grow the business for both of us. So he started in, I suppose it must have been, it was about 2 years ago. It was about the same time that we were getting married. We got, so next week is our wedding anniversary, and he must have started maybe in the March of 2018, which in hindsight, maybe that's where everything kind of, I suppose, might have gone a little bit wrong in terms of, I suppose I've been brought up with the business. He took a lot of pressure on himself to, do better, always working. And yeah, he then ended up having a little bit of a, I suppose, well, he says like a midlife crisis at 27, but a bit of a, I suppose it all got a bit much. And his way of...
You were telling me that like there's a lot of added stress here coming into the family business. You feel like that was like a big precursor to a lot of the problems.
Yeah, definitely. And from how he is kind of now, it's kind of highlighted it all. And I suppose not necessarily stress put on him, but just, I think, not creating his own stress, but wanting to strive to, do better, be better, and, get the most out of it. But actually, he probably took too much pressure on himself.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I talk with people about their problems, quite often, I'm looking at this from lots of different angles. I'm looking at here, Alex, stepping into the this life and into the family business, and it almost sounds to me like Alex really wanted to kind of integrate himself into the family and wanted to be a part of that family. Do you think that there was maybe some pressures here to fit in or to do things a certain way? Do you think that's part of what initially caused some of the issues between the two of you?
Maybe, but I think in other he's quite a perfectionist. He does suffer a lot from OCD and other things like that. So he, in that terms of the pressure that he always wants to give his best and think that he can, do the best that he can, do better. It would then add to kind of the stress that I guess, was caused, and then it shown some weaknesses that happened there.
So what happened here? I mean, you guys came to our organization for help. Where were you before you started seeking help here?
So in November, my parents went to South Africa for sort of 3 weeks. They ended up staying nearly 2 months. My dad had a heart attack and had to have a stent and a triple bypass. So yeah, for us then back home running everything, and obviously they were in South Africa, we were here in the UK. It was a lot to deal with. And it turns out in that week that happened, Alex had slept with someone that used to work for us over the summer. We had like a seasonal diving instructor. He went just 2 times, went off in the middle of the day. They were, I suppose, friends, but not really proper friends, if that makes sense, in terms of, or colleague, kind of thing. So that's how it obviously the trouble came about. Before then, we didn't have any major problems in our marriage. You know, we didn't hate each other. You know, we were very much in love. But I guess from doing this program, there's certain things that I guess with communication between the both of us might not have been so good. The stresses, and there's times where I feel that maybe we let I suppose work and everything else almost get in the way of actually our marriage and our relationship, and we almost were too busy looking at the future to actually concentrating on the right now. And for me, I always thought that we would you know, if you have to work hard for a bit to get where you are, I had that in my head. And we were coming up to a few really, really nice holidays. So we were going to have a bit of a break and spend some really good quality time together. Whereas for him, it almost got, I don't know, the pressure, everything got too much, and his let out, or what he did, comes from that.
So that must have been really difficult finding out about Alex and what he was doing. How did you react?
So he didn't tell me. He left beginning of December. Almost just said he had a breakdown, he couldn't do it. It wasn't just me, but it was the whole life. So he never told me what happened. I found out from a random text message that I got. I still don't know to this day who it's from. It's from a number that I guess is a pay-as-you-go phone or anything, you know, right. That told me, and so he had already gone, and I thought, so I gave him the space that he sort of needed, because I thought that it just, you know, everything got a bit too much, and he just needed a bit of time to think about actually I never thought it was anything to do with our relationship, but I suppose our whole world comes as a, you know, it's not just, there's a lot of entities to it. And yeah, I was crushed. I was upset.
Of course.
I never, you know, we were a team. He was my best friend. I never thought in a million years that this would have happened. So when I did find out, it's weird, because although I was, you know, it was horrible and I was angry and I was frustrated, I was also a little bit relieved about when I found out that something had happened, because I just didn't get it otherwise. I didn't get, nothing made sense if that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of confusion perhaps with where you guys were at with your relationship. Just a lot of odd behavior perhaps.
Yeah.
So here you're saying you're crushed here, and this was really hard. What do you think was the biggest challenge at this point in your relationship with Alex?
I just didn't know how to, I suppose I couldn't see how to move forward. And for me, when, you know, I always thought that, you know, when, I don't know, it's happened to, you hear about it happening to friends or other bits. For me, I always thought that was it. It was, you know, if that happens, then the relationship, marriage is over. So I guess my first instinct when that happened was how can I, move on from this? How can I, you know? So I think, especially before I found this program, I was, confused about, I suppose, where to go, how to react. I didn't see it as an option to, at the start, I guess, to my initial reaction was done. Like, I can't deal with this.
So why didn't it end? I mean, like, what did you do here? I mean, it must have taken a lot of personal work. It must have taken a lot of work talking with things over with Alex. Why didn't it end? When you, at first you're like, okay, my marriage is over.
I guess because I then kind of, I suppose did a lot of work on myself and being like, well, yes, I know he's done it, but there's a reason why it's happened. So I kind of then looked into that, and then that's when I came across your program, and it was interesting that then I guess had a more of understanding, and then actually understanding maybe Alex's point of view as well, which I probably didn't do before. And actually that gave me a lot more clarity and a lot more peace for me.
Well, I think a lot of people would look at something like infidelity and have that initial reaction right there, where they say, okay, this is too terrible to deal with. And I would even say that many people would say, okay, the people who have been unfaithful perhaps shouldn't be forgiven. They've done this great damage. Somewhere along the way here, you must have come to some conclusion or some way to describe the situation that made it okay. And that's kind of what you're hinting at here. You're saying you had some better understanding for Alex. What made this at least okay enough to try and work on things and fix this?
I guess I kind of wasn't gonna define him on maybe the one, I suppose, he's done a bad thing and other bits, but he is an amazing person. He was an amazing, husband. And I do believe in forgiveness. I do believe in second chances. And I suppose my gut feeling, I just wasn't ready to walk away from it. And I thought, actually, would this have happened if I had, maybe we both had put more effort into our relationship. Maybe I was a little bit naive of, yes, I know marriages and stuff take work and things like that. My parents, my grandparents, they've been together for years, and I've had that, I suppose, that role model of, it is work, but, you do love each other, and that's, where you go from. And so, yeah, I guess I just wasn't willing to give up on what we have. And I also thought maybe, yes, it's early on in our marriage, and I never thought this would happen, but maybe we would have a better marriage if now that we can learn from it and see why it may have happened.
That's and an interesting idea there. I mean, here you're talking about infidelity, but you're saying possibly as a result we could have a better marriage. Why would it? How could you have a better marriage after the fact?
I guess being a lot more, maybe open and honest about stuff, and having a better understanding of each other as a person, the communication. A lot of the time that he would say, I just needed to be strong for us, and I'm a very strong person, and I'd be like, well, Alex, you don't actually. It's great, he's always had to look after, his family, his mum in the past. So he has a few sort of underlying, I suppose, issues there. So I guess, maybe sometimes, as well as, we would talk about anything and other bits, but I think there's certain things that maybe the communication wasn't quite as transparent, I guess, as it is now.
So you said there's a lot more openness, a lot more honesty, and I think that's great. That I'm a firm believer that big problems, big challenges are the greatest teachers. It helps us to reevaluate our life and evaluate whether this is the kind of the course of action we want to continue going down. And it sounds like, okay, you at least on some areas there's some big shifts here.
Yeah.
In what's going on in your marriage. So where are things right now with you and Alex? How's your marriage going?
So yeah, it's not brilliant at current, but that is I guess, I don't know about you guys, but here in the UK we've been on lockdown since March, and before that because we're not living together at the moment, he's still at his mum's. He was sort of getting himself, I suppose, more sorted. We had been on some dates, and I want
to point. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to point out the timeline here, because like this is you started really working on this say, what was it, February?
February, yeah.
So I'm just giving everyone the timeline, like
Yeah.
this is an ongoing project, but I'm sorry.
So from when it happened in, say, December to before, I remember having a group call with you, and that was one of the first, this before I spoken with, I suppose, had my first one-to-one with Corinne, and we hadn't had much communication, and he very much kind of was like, I don't know if this is what I want, I can't do it, I can't forgive myself. And then you said, oh, you need to call him, you need to speak. And then from then, it changed. I guess my mindset had changed when I saw him for the first, time in, it'd been, I suppose 3 weeks or so. And then it had been moving forward very quickly from then. But the lockdown has kind of put a stop to it a little, or I suppose a pause to it, in terms of he is now he's now having counseling, because one of the things that he knew that he needed it, but he was a bit ashamed to go. He also then he had got a new job back doing marine engineering, and so threw himself into that. He then started going to the gym a lot, which he really enjoys. And after then this lockdown of then he had time to think, he then realized how much he needed the help, because he had thoughts of, he said, I sympathize with people that take their own life. I just hate myself. I can't believe what I've done. So in terms of why it's kind of on pause in that sense, is because he's got a lot of work to do on himself to love himself again. He never thought that I would forgive him. And the fact that I am and willing to try at this, it sort of threw him in the beginning. And now he's having to accept to forgive himself. And, he doesn't have a great relationship with his dad. His dad left his mum for his mum's best friend, and he feels, well, I'm just like him. So there's a lot of history there of, I suppose, that he needs to kind of deal with, within. And I've said that I will support him through this.
It sounds to me, though, like there's certainly an upward trend. Like it started off where you guys were like, I don't know if we can make through this. And now you were saying, okay, there's forgiveness here. How do we actually resolve this? How do we actually maybe get past some of the hurt, the pain that's gone on, and come out the other end? It sounds, I don't know, how secure do you feel with the situation in the direction that it's going right now?
I actually feel a bit more secure when so this only happened last week, that we're just taking a bit of time, like to not we were talking kind of every day and then going on walks and stuff, but I suppose I could notice him getting sort of worse, and he'd had a few virtual counselling sessions but not got on with them, and then he found another counsellor which he has got on with, and we sort of agreed that to just give ourselves space for a week or two, so we did that I suppose last week, and then 2 days ago I got sent some, or when was it, some flowers which said I will love you forever, or no, what was it, I will love you always and forever. So there's some different things which I suppose I didn't expect from him, because I was expecting, he asked for a little bit of space to sort himself out, but then, and I said to him with the, obviously thank you for the flowers, with these, obviously from you, but, and he said, I was thinking about you, and I wanted to do something to hopefully make you smile, because next week is our wedding anniversary. So hopefully we can, as the lockdown is easing up and he's getting help, we can move forward. But I'm willing to be patient and wait for him to sort himself out first before we then sort of move on together. And I do feel secure that we will have a better marriage for it. But he does need to address, I suppose, how he's feeling at the moment.
It sounds to me like you're balancing some, say, forgiveness and understanding, but right there, you said something where you said, okay, he does need to take care of some of these things. So there's accountability there mixed with.
I guess it's, I suppose what I mean by take care of the things is how he's feeling, I suppose, emotionally, because I've been there, saying, I will support you, and I will, we can work through this, together. But some of what he needs with the counselling and other bits go through is I suppose from his past. I suppose he's bottled up a lot of stuff that then has now come ahead. And he says that he hates himself for very different reasons. He doesn't feel like he's the same person. He doesn't like the person who he is, but he wants to love himself again, but he's just not sure how to do that right now.
Well, it's understandable given the circumstances. I mean, you mentioned earlier, Alex is this perfectionist type of person. I bet he probably went into your marriage, with this idealistic point of view, like, hey, we're going to have this happy marriage. And then I bet it was a bit of even a surprise to him how far he took this.
Yeah,
what it sounds like.
Yeah, and that's what he says. I mean, if you ask any of my friends or anything else, but everyone is very shocked at what happened, because they were like, oh, he's so devoted, and he's I never would have thought he would have done that, and he prides himself of being that sweet, loving husband, and would do anything for me, and I guess and when I say that to him, if that's why I'm still here, because you are a great and amazing guy, he cries, because he's like, I'm glad you still see it.
So what's helped you the most personally through all this?
I guess I feel like I've kind of got my, I suppose, confidence back. Either having the chats with Corinne or listening and doing all the like the morning formula, making sure I've got a routine, making sure that I put myself first in that sense, because I have a lot of amazing things going in my life, which I'm I have a great love, so it's kind of putting my energy into that and focusing on that. And then once I did that, and I had that then understanding of maybe how Alex was feeling, it just changed everything. I almost that pain and hurt that I felt in the beginning of what happened suddenly went away, and I just felt better.
It almost sounds to me like you stopped hanging your happiness, like it wasn't so dependent on Alex.
Yeah.
So that was like one thing, and then you were able to approach this with a lot more understanding. So like, just for everyone else's sake, you mentioned the morning formula. That's one of our big exercises that we tell people to do in our program. But yeah, you took care of yourself. You didn't really hang that happiness on Alex, and then you were able to approach it with a lot more understanding. And it sounds like you feel okay, even if this is hard. You feel okay with what's.
Yeah, and actually and a lot of people have said to me, I don't get how you feel so okay, or how you can be so understanding towards him, and that has been really hard, of trying not, obviously I will listen to anyone and take on their opinions, but you do have to be careful, because a lot of people will force their own opinions and experiences on but no one knows Alex or our relationship like I do. So
certainly, like, it's really easy for some of them to say, well, you should be angry, you should just leave them. They don't have to deal with the consequences of that anger or leaving your husband. It's easy to put out that advice, but I get where they're coming from. Even I mean, they're coming from a place where they care about you. They want to make sure that you're not being taken advantage of, that you feel healthy. And does it feel like that for you? Does it feel like you're being stepped on or taken advantage of? And
not at all. No.
Well, then that's exactly good then. So with that said, I mean, it sounds like you've really had a bit of a journey here. What advice would you give other people who are in similar situations, who have maybe facing similar problems?
I couldn't recommend kind of the program enough. So I definitely say, do the videos, do share your experiences, because it does help. And talking about it to people. And I think also it helps that, you talk about it with your friends and everything else like that, but they will always have a biased opinion. And I think one thing I have learned from the program is, speaking to you guys and listening to the videos, it's you're talking experience of lots of people that are in sort of, I suppose, my situation, but not exactly like it. Your outlook can change. I think it makes you just feel like, one, you're not the only one, and also there is you can be happy. You can, even if something it doesn't feel like you can, or you think your marriage is going to end, if you change your mindset and stuff. And I think it is really important that you do need to work on yourself and make yourself happy, because I've always been a very happy person, and even prior to this I wouldn't say that I wasn't. But I think this program's taught me to I don't know what it is. Maybe it's been a bit more self-assurance, maybe. And it does sound a bit corny, because I don't want to say like loving yourself, but in that sort of way.
If that's something that's helped, I mean, that's fine. I mean, if you're saying being able to love yourself has been a big step in overcoming some of this, then that's a good piece of advice, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly, I feel happy to hear that you feel like the program made a difference. This is kind of why we go into these things. And, since I built a large part of the program, it always kind of warms my heart to hear that it helps people.
Definitely. And not just for, like, as I was saying, not just in your relationship, in all parts of life. Even in thinking about, doing things, if you want to, grow the business and other stuff, it's not just helped me in the relationship part, it's helped me in all aspects of my life. And that's why, even, I suppose, I always thought, and I went into it thinking, even if it doesn't work out, I'll be a better person and I'll feel better for it. So that was my mindset going into it. Either way, I think it's going to help me, one way or the other. And it definitely has. And I think without this program, I don't think I would have ever gotten through to Alex. And I think I then would have, what I never wanted to do is, I always wanted, if it was going to end, that I didn't want to have any regrets. I wanted to walk away knowing that I had tried everything. Now that when it had worked and done stuff, I was really surprised by the reaction I got from him. I wasn't, from how kind of we left it back in, December, January, of him, just not wanting anything, and me not sure if I even wanted it. to where it is now. It's very different. And that 100% wouldn't have happened if I hadn't found you guys.
Well, I really appreciate
So
your words there. I mean, and I just appreciate your story here. I mean, it is, it's kind of amazing to hear. I mean, yes, not everything is fixed, but in a little bit of time here, February to May, it's just a few short months, but at least, if, like you said before, it feels much more secure. It feels like there's a lot more hope, is almost what it sounds like. Well, great. Miriam, do you have any closing thoughts before we end this?
I just think just stick with it with stuff, because even though, and there will be a lot of ups and downs, like it's not perfect at the moment, but I could easily just be like, well, if it's not this by then, I'll just walk away. But it's not. I think you've got to give it your all and be patient with it. And sort of don't give up at the first hurdle, because I think in the long run, if you do put your all into it and you are patient, what you will get out of it will be way more rewarding. And I think in the end, you'll be a lot happier as a person, not just in the relationship.
Absolutely. That's some great words there. Well, Miriam, really appreciate your time and sharing your story here. Of course, stick around for just a second after we end here. But, what I want to say here is, just like Miriam was saying here, there are some really dire circumstances that many of you may be facing. And, just like Miriam and her story, like it might seem hopeless. It might seem like things can't get any better. But, I think our philosophy here is there's always something that you can do to take at least one step forward and to improve your situation. And in many cases, it can lead to a much more stable position and eventually to actually a happy marriage. Just like you said, you have the hope here that your marriage with Alex could be even better than it was before. And that's what we're aiming for here. So once again, thank you, Miriam, for your time.
You're welcome.
And we'll catch you all next week on our podcast. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks for listening to The Thriving Marriage, your A to Z blueprint for not just surviving marriage, but thriving. Until next time, my friends, thrive on.